Hello again, everyone. We really are back, and it feels like such a long time since we last saw each other. Almost no videos throughout all of September, I know, but I have a good reason for the lapse in content. Claire and I were working our butts off on this video, the plot synopsis for our APOCTOBER story. What's APOCTOBER, you ask? Well, like Smaugust and Mermaid, it's a daily drawing challenge where artists work from a list of prompts to create a new piece of artwork every day for the month of October. Unlike Smaugust and Mermaid, however, this challenge is one that I, Jack, have made up myself. It started 2 years ago when I first moved to Providence and fell in love with that turn-of-the-century post-industrial aesthetic that's preserved so well here. I also learned more about H.P. Lovecraft, the birth of the cosmic horror genre, and its ties to New England and my new home. And with that, APOCTOBER 31 Days of Madness was born. It started off just like any other drawing challenge. Artists use inspiration from a set of prompts to create spooky, cosmic horror-themed illustrations. But as I continued to draw, a story began to develop in my head, and I'm still working on that story to this day. I started fleshing it out a little bit more during last year's APOCTOBER, but I never concluded that first part of the story. So, in preparation for APOCTOBER 2021, Claire and I made a condensed plot synopsis of the whole story. Everything I've shared so far or never got the chance to share, all in one clean little video that we're really proud of. The story will pick up today where it left off at the end of that video, so be sure you watch that before you dive into these new illustrations. If you're interested, you can watch the older APOCTOBER videos as well, but a lot of that story is either retconned or incomplete. Everything you need to know about the lore is in that most recent video. And of course, I don't want to exclude our Pokemon fans, so like with Smaugust and Mermaid, 4 days out of the month will be Pokemon designs. I want them to stay consistent with the spooky themes of the month, so they'll all be a little strange and a little creepy. This week, I'll be designing a new ghost type for the Maza region. That's on day 7, so we'll get to it at the end of the video. Now I'm going to be reading from the journal of Celeste Mason, the protagonist of the APOCTOBER story. She's just begun her journey to seek out and recapture the many Enigmorphs that escaped from Professor Door's amulet, and this log will follow her as she learns more about these mysterious, otherworldly entities. Enjoy! I'm not much into the idea of keeping a personal log. It feels a little... well, honestly, it's just something Grandma would do. Go figure, this was her idea. She told me that the professor liked to keep a written record of his encounters. Said it helped him keep sane. Worth a shot, I suppose. My first encounter with an Enigmorph. Well, according to Door's own personal journals, it means puzzling shape. Puzzling? Perhaps. Terrifying? Without a doubt. This first Enigmorph was nearly 8 feet long and stood 14 feet tall. Everywhere I looked on the thing, I saw mouths opening, teeth gnashing, and spit drooling. I don't think I'll ever forget the sensation that rushed through me when its jaws closed around my hand. Even now my pulse quickens, my brow drips with sweat. And yet, I survived. Moreover, I defeated the beast. Bonnie tells me that this is just the first of many, that I had it easy. I get the feeling that they enjoy getting a rise out of me. Still, something about the way they said it sounded more sincere than I'd care to admit. Bonnie wasn't kidding. This is not going to get any easier. These Enigmorphs aren't of our world. Hell, they're not even from the same dimension. Nothing a normal human could do would stop them or even slow them down. The only way to really get rid of them is with the amulet, and it can only do so after it's identified their one and only mortal weakness. Gluttony. That was an easy one. But this last Enigmorph, neglect. We kept encountering it in the graveyard where Mother is buried, every time Grandma went to see her. It grew bigger and bigger with each visit. We thought it was feeding on the dead. Just in time, though, we learned that it was actually feeding on the grief of those coming to visit the dead. Had it taken us any longer, it would have grown strong enough to start bringing in fresh mourners with bodies of its own. So we began to neglect the Enigmorph. It wasn't easy to keep Grandma from going back to the cemetery. Hard on me, too, I won't lie. But we did it. The neglect cut it down to no bigger than a chickadee, and the amulet was able to trap it once again. how is it that folks around here aren't yet wise to this whole Enigmorph problem? It's been 6 weeks since the amulet was opened, and yeah, we've managed to wrangle up a few of them without much fuss, but some of these things, they just seem too big to ignore. I went for a walk this morning at sunrise. As I reached Point Street Bridge, I noticed something moving just beyond the horizon. I couldn't believe my eyes at first. It seemed to materialize out of the dawn mist, stretching upwards a mile into the sky. Limbs that could span a cornfield were reaching out over the quiet city, and the air stunk with the unmistakable smell of low tide. It didn't make a sound. Perhaps that's why no one else around me stopped to look. Perhaps they saw it and pretended they couldn't. Or perhaps I really have started to... No, I know what I saw. I wish I could log some more helpful information about this new Enigmorph, but it vanished soon after the sun came up. I have no idea how I'll be able to catch something that enormous. The good news is, it seemed to have no interest in destruction or carnage the same way some of these others did. But, and this might sound crazy, I could swear that it was looking for something. I'm learning that Bonnie is not the only Enigmorph that's partial to a human form. Back in the mid-19th century, a secret society was formed in Providence known as the Faces of the Moon. It was run by a mysterious guy named Isaac Burgess, who vanished without a trace back in the 1870s. We have the professor to thank for that. Not a week after I released the Enigmorph formerly known as Burgess from the amulet, his cult following was back in full force. It was the first time our target was actually being protected by humans. The only way to get at this thing was to infiltrate his cult ourselves. While undercover, Bonnie and I learned his one mortal weakness, megalomania. No surprises there. I can only speak for myself, but I don't consider lashing people with a whip made of human vertebrae a desirable trait in a leader. Like all megalomaniacs, he derived his power from the subservience of his followers. It wasn't easy, but after weeks of undermining his inner circles, the only one out there buying Isaac Burgess's crap was the Enigmorph pretending to be him. Let me tell you, Enigmorphs and social politics don't mix. Or rather, they mix too well. You'd think that a stuffy bunch of pretentious aristocrats wouldn't be able to look past the apparent deformities of one Anna Malacostrica, but I guess having a literal crab for a head isn't as important to these people as having enough money to buy and sell Providence. We're not entirely sure how the Enigmorph known as Lady Malacostrica got so much mortal currency. I had figured that such earthly desires were beneath interdimensional entities. Maybe it's just easier to get the attention that this one craves so desperately from humans. We tend to be easy to impress. Oh damn, that's it, isn't it? Her mortal vice, vanity. How did I not see this before? Well, sitting around writing isn't going to do much good. I gotta tell Bonnie. Perhaps more dangerous than the Enigmorphs themselves are the effect that they've had on mortals here on Earth. Take, for example, Victoria Brand, or this most recent case, Cosette Devois, a professor at Pembroke College until she was fired and nearly arrested on a count of arson and several counts of theft. Apparently, she stole over 600 candles, burned down her own office, and fled to some desolate town up in Massachusetts. Now witness testimonies claim that she's living in an abandoned lighthouse on a tiny island a mile or so off the coast. A few people have tried to make contact with her since her breakdown, but claim she's impossible to communicate with. They say she only speaks in song and repeats the same lyrics over and over again. Come, sisters of the light, we must keep the path lit bright, so that others might find their way to Mother on her birthing day. I think that was the song. Gets stuck in your head real easily, it does. Anyway, we're not sure what Enigmorph is responsible for her descent into madness. Maybe she was just a head case to begin with. That brings us to day 7 of the prompt list, which is a Pokemon design. I hope you all enjoyed the log entries and designs that I've created so far. I'm trying to appeal a little bit more to the Pokemon audience by adding in an element of monster collection, so tell me if that scratches the same sort of design itch you guys love with the Maza region. And speaking of which, let's look at the new Fakemon for day 7's prompt, Ghost. I've had the idea for a while to make a Pokemon based off of the Aztec Death Whistle. I think a few fans have suggested the idea as well. They're very cool and very strange little artifacts that when blown into sound like a blood-curdling human scream. Pretty terrifying, but I wanted more Pokemon based off of inanimate objects rather than specific animals. And that spookiness is right on par with the unusual cosmic horror theme of APOCTOBER. The design I was imagining was less skull-like and a little bit more interpretive rather than a literal translation of the whistle into Pokemon form. I also imagined something living inside the whistle, a creepy little spirit monster with insect-like features. Namely, wispy, amorphous limbs that come out from underneath the whistle itself and scuttle it around. The illustration I made is from the underside so that you could see the maniacal little face of the Pokemon, but I imagined that an in-game 3D model would just show the whistle standing upright with tendril-like legs reaching out from underneath. I'd love to see some fan art of it from the front or top. Macrabra, the screeching Pokemon. Inside the shell of Macrabra is an intricate system of chambers that the amorphous Pokemon uses to hide in. If Macrabra doesn't want to be found, it won't be. These chambers also resonate sound in curious ways. People sometimes make instruments out of discarded Macrabra shells, but the sounds they produce are more akin to human screams than any music. That's it for this week of APOCTOBER, everyone. Thanks for watching this far in. I'd like to throw in the end here that, while I have no plans to make any new hallowed Pokemon forms this month, I'd still love to see your designs. Any ideas you have for hallowed Pokemon, like the ones that we've done in past few years, share them in the Fan Art Friday channel of our Discord for a chance for them to be featured at the end of the month. We'll also be sharing APOCTOBER prompts done by you guys as well. That's it for now, guys. Happy APOCTOBER, and I'll see you all in the next video.